Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for stopping by. My name is Bob Mangold, and I'm here with a rare treat. I'm going to give you our gentleman's name. Our guest today is Robert W. And the truth is, I'm not going to give you his last name, and I'm not going to give you his company name. Here's why, folks. The last time I did it, the guest that I interviewed had a little bit over 300 people look him up and start calling him. And I'm going to guess, Robert, you would probably want to kick my butt if I did that to you, right?
Good chance of that, Bob.
Yep. So at the end of the day, we're not going to do that, folks, because what we want to talk about today, Robert happened to have an open house event this weekend, and I want him to talk about that and what he does and how he does it, because, well, I've been teaching real estate agents to start thinking outside the box for decades. Quit doing what everybody else does. Mm-hmm. And so Robert has this online bidding platform that he uses to be able to take and go out and get listings. And so it creates a very powerful, unique selling proposition. So, Robert, I'm going to let you kind of talk about that a little bit. So if I'm a seller, why do I want to work with you?
Well, there's a lot of reasons, Bob. So thanks for having me on. First of all, the sellers, let's talk about the for sale by owner for a second. The for sale by owner does not want to list with an agent. Specifically, at least 85, 90% of the people that I talk to for sale by owners don't want to list because they don't want to pay a commission. And Bob, the online bidding platform allows us to do what's called a buyer premium. So the seller doesn't have to pay the listing commission. The buyer does. So it's a fantastic way. And it saves the seller thousands of dollars.
And it works just like an auction, folks. The difference is that it's completely transparent. So, Robert, I know you've had to have buyers, or you've written 5, 6, 7, 8 offers. They get into multiple offers and they get beat out and nobody knows what to offer, right? So yep. Tell people the cool part about this and how it eliminates that for agents.
Well, you know what's funny is when I have our before the pandemic, we had our open houses where 250, 300 people come through the doors. Post-pandemic, we have more what's called staggered showings. What I do is I'll explain to the agent how by bidding online, it's all transparent. You can see exactly where all the bids are, because what happens a lot of times is when agents write an offer, they write their offer, they send it into the agent, they cross their fingers, and they have no idea where the other 5, 6, 7 other interested buyers are. It's basically, you're crossing your fingers and you're getting blind offers. A lot of times what will happen is the seller's multiple counter will come back. What do you respond with? With this platform, this online bidding transparent platform, we can see exactly where every single buyer has placed their bid. Total transparency, win-win for buyer and agent.
In real time, right?
In real time, yes.
So if you're an agent and you're tired of dragging people around to have to write 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 contracts, well, guess what, guys? If your buyer really wants that house, they have the ability to get the house. So the buyers love it.
Yeah.
The agents should love it, right? It's a little different concept, so you got to educate them a little bit, right? But it's pretty powerful system. And then we always talk about the 8 targets for listings, right? FSBOs, expireds, cancels, probate, divorce. Mm-hmm. Well, it solves every problem for each one of them, doesn't it?
You know, it does. I've never met a seller that didn't want to save money, whether it's a for sale by owner, like we mentioned, but probate, a lot of the heirs, they want to save, they want to make as much as they can. They don't want to pay a bunch of fees.
Right.
So I've never met a seller that didn't want to save money, and this online bidding platform allows us to do that with the buyer premium.
Right. And so tell me if you've ever found a seller that doesn't want to sell their house in 14 days or less. They want to get the highest possible price and they want to pay 0 commission.
You know what? I've never met a seller that didn't want those 3 things. Yep. Highest and best price, shortest amount of time, least amount of hassle and liability, Bob.
And we get that it sounds to be too good to be true. We get that, right? So if you've got questions on that, I'll tell you a little bit at the end where you could, schedule a time and I could chat with you, or you could attend a class, whatever it would be. But Robert's taken this to just the nth degree. In pre-pandemic, Robert actually holds the record for the number of people at an open house. How many did you get at an open house in one day? Robert, looks like you froze up on me. So let's see if he unfreezes. So 586 people at an open house in one day. Can you imagine that happening, folks? And so it looks like Robert's frozen on me. Let me click a couple things, see if we can unfreeze him. Edit name, bam. Oh, let's add him back in. Let's see if we add him back into the stream, see what happens. Hey.
I think I got kicked out.
I might have removed you from the thing, so just that link still should be the right link.
Yeah, I'm reloading right now.
And so because you were frozen, so you weren't able to talk or hear, and so I tried to do something to do that. But the good news is this is why I didn't do it live like that, because I can just edit all this out, so it's not a big deal.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened. I don't know if it's my internet here or my bars look good.
Huh.
Weird. Okay, so it's now it's thinking. Reload. Same link being used.
Should be.
Let's get practice up.
Well, that's why I didn't want to do it like as a live stream.
Sure.
Because this kind of stuff happens. So all we got to do is I'll just come back in, and fortunately, I remember the question I was at.
We can kind of cut and edit and do all that.
Yeah, that's the beauty of this, because now it's just going to record and do all this. I'll just edit it when it downloads.
Let's see. So clicking the link again. It's not letting me in here. Come on now. It's all the other agents and companies going, no, don't let everybody know about this great tool.
And I got to
stopping us. Yeah, let me try to log in a different way. Paste. Hit enter. Okay. Cancel that one. Let's start a new one. Yeah, it's just thinking. I wonder if I have to shut down. Start over. Let's do that. Go shut down. Maybe it's on my side. Let's see.
It should be the same link that ends in 6x. I just tried doing it again in another window.
Yeah, I just disconnected and I'm redoing now. I'm re-going back in right now.
Okay.
So I'm coming right back to you. Yep, okay.
There we go.
All right.
So, all right, easy enough. So we're still rolling. So what I'm going to do is I'll come back to the sentence. Hey, Robert actually holds the record for number of people at an open house. How many did you have at one day? 586. And then we'll kind of go from there.
Okay.
All right. So by the way, folks, actually, Robert owns our record for how many people in an open house in one day.
One day.
Robert, how many?
We had 587 people. It was a 4 open house, like a quadfecta, if you will. We had 4 all within walking distance of each other. It was absolutely amazing. We had 189 name, email, confirmed cell phones that one day.
So
it was awesome. It was awesome.
587. Now the neighbors had to think that this was crazy, right? So guys, you talk about farming in a neighborhood, and here are all these people, like hundreds, almost 600 people coming in to see 4 houses in a 1-block radius. Boy, you think those neighbors who were thinking about selling a house would want to come in and find out what was going on?
I actually got 2 listings from that weekend, and it was just an absolutely. I had people stopping just because they wanted to see what the deal was. They weren't even interested in looking at real estate. They just wanted to see what was going on.
Right. And so, guys, imagine what you could do. And the truth is, they were completely overwhelmed. I think you had, 9 agents there working with you?
Mm-hmm.
And they were completely overwhelmed. They couldn't keep up with the traffic.
Yeah.
So I promise he missed out on buyer opportunities because they simply couldn't get to everybody.
Yeah.
But we tried something a little bit different, and oh my gosh, it blew the doors off. So that part's pretty cool. So let's talk a little bit about the one you did this weekend, because I think what's important is, we keep hearing about the pandemic, and certainly in states that are still locked down, right? Oh, I can't do an open house and I can't do this. So you got creative and you just did it in a different way, in which is completely compliant with California regulations, right?
Yes.
And so all he did was he just took in scheduled showings. He used Calendly and did that, right?
Yep. So let me walk you through it.
Okay.
We listed the property, Bob, on Wednesday evening. We had Thursday, Friday, just blitz marketing, MLS, all those syndicated websites. Saturday at 8 o'clock, it started staggered showings on a Calendly link by appointment only. We're not allowed to do open houses yet. So what we did is we did by appointment only, calendar appointments, literally started at 8 in the morning, ended at 8 in the evening. And because we had so much interest, we had to add all the calendar links for Sunday as well. And of course, at the check-in desk, I have my red carpet rolled out. I have my check-in area. It's just like a nice restaurant. Your name, your number, confirming that they've actually registered online.
Right.
And then it gives me a chance to walk them through the website, answer any questions, and then they go on in. And then in every 15 minutes, another group comes in. So it's staggered showings by appointment only.
And so, guys, imagine all day long, 8 to 8, being in a neighborhood and all the neighbors seeing a consistent line of people coming in. And so if you had a bunch of people, the neighbors come in anyway, so you're probably going to get some listings out of that, right? But imagine if we just go back and knock on the doors in the neighborhood and say, hey, you know what? We had so many people come in, and unfortunately, only one person's going to be able to buy this house. We have a lot of people looking into moving into this neighborhood. Have you considered selling? Because I've got buyers right here in this neighborhood.
Friday afternoon, what we're doing is we end the auction, or the online bidding, if you will, ends that following Thursday. So this coming Thursday, it ends at 5 o'clock. Only one person can get that home, but you must be pre-approved before you can even bid. So what I'll do is I'll go out, like you just mentioned about going to the neighbors. I've got contacts, about 3 or 4 neighbors that are interested in selling, that came down, and it's kind of a quasi interview. So I'm going to be out in the neighborhood on Friday once the auction ends and we decide who the buyer is.
Right.
I'm going to go out there and find homes for the other buyers. It's going to be fantastic.
So it's an amazing way of doing business, yet it requires a little different thinking for a real estate agent, right? We have a little education process in there. But you started the price at what, $430? Was that right?
Started at 408, and the seller wanted a certain amount. Yeah.
So seller wanted 480, right?
480,
right.
correct.
If I get to 480, man, I'm thrilled. So you still got 2 days. Is it 2 days? No, so we still got 1 day left. And where are you at with the highest offer right now?
We currently stand with 18 bids at 494.
So you think that seller is going to be happy, folks?
It's
a little scary to tell them, oh my gosh, start out at 408, but just working the system and getting that in, guys. Even with, hey, we can't have open houses, and I would say your average open house, pretty much what, 250, 300 people roughly. So can't get 250, 300 people in there right now. The state won't allow it. And so all Robert did is said, hey, instead of doing an open house in that way, and it's mostly agents, so he won't pick up as many buyers, although he did have buyers start coming into the house when they seen all that going on, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I had buyers calling me and just showing up because they saw it on all the syndicated websites. So what I would do, Bob, is the agents had reserved the 15-minute window.
Right.
But Calendly automatically gives you an extra 15-minute pad. So what I was doing, as I was registering the buyers, making sure we have our safety protocols in order, I would actually, myself or one of my buyer agents, would walk them through the home, and that person would give a guided tour of the home. So we would put the agents that didn't have appointments and the buyers in between each showing.
Right. And full disclosure, the highest bid right now is a buyer who did not have an agent, that if you got no other bids, you're going to double end this thing.
And they literally keep calling me saying, hey, where are we at? I can't wait till tomorrow. And how we doing? And it's, you know what? It's a wonderful program. I tell you, it is, it's so easy to use, and the transparency, that's what people want. Buyers and sellers both want the transparency, and they call me and tell me if we just got a new bid. They're watching. So it's great.
Think about it from the agent standpoint. So you get into a multiple offer, and your buyer comes to you and says, hey, Robert, what should I offer? Well, the truth is we don't know. Yeah. And the minute we say a number, we just absorbed a whole bunch of liability, right?
Oh, yeah.
And we just go, hey, guys, you can go online and see it. You can watch it happen. You can react just like that in real time to do it. So guess what? We relieved a lot of liability from ourselves as the agent, right?
Yeah.
And then, well, if my buyer really wants the house, especially if you've got, you've written 4, 5, 6, 7 offers, and they're like, listen, I'm tired, I'm going to get this one. Well, guess what? You can finally bring your buyer to contract, so that's a good thing.
Yep.
So the buyer's happy, the agent's happy, and the seller, in the majority of cases, is pretty darn happy, right?
Like I said, I've never met a seller that didn't want more than what they thought.
Yeah. And here's the other thing to consider too, folks. We get in a listing presentation, well, what do you think we should sell the house? What do you think we should list the house for? And everybody has their answers. And so what I would tell you is that what this system really does, it allows the market to tell. Because let's be honest, like Robert, you don't create the market value, do you?
Nope.
And an appraiser doesn't do it, because if that was the case, guys, real estate would never appreciate in price. All we can do is say, here's what the comps, here's what people are generally paying. The only person who determines market value is the buyer.
Yep.
Robert, how many times have you had a buyer come in, they offered more and maybe had an issue on the appraisal and they just brought cash in?
You know what? That's what happens in our counter offers. A lot of times on the real popular properties, we have in our counter offer, our disclosure basically says that for some reason it doesn't appraise. We need to show proof of funds. We need to show ability to actually bridge that gap between sales price and appraisal. But I'm not seeing a lot of appraisal issues, because who am I to say what it's worth? The market spoke. We show them 24 plus bids. Right. So we have those safeguards in place.
And see, that's the cool part, folks. When an appraiser says, well, I'm really skeptical. Listen, I had, in this case, for the one that Robert did this weekend, he has 18 bidders as of this minute, right? So actually tomorrow at 4 o'clock is really when everything happens. That last hour, everybody freaks out and goes, oh, we haven't gotten this. It'll be the last hour. But at the end of the day, you can bring that to the appraiser and say, listen, I had 10, 15, 20 people that were willing to pay more than what you're saying the house is worth. And an appraiser has to appraise based on what is a buyer willing to pay.
Yeah,
now,
exactly.
Especially in this, because it's a buyer's market everywhere. And yes, I know post-pandemic and everybody thinks that's not the case. It is. Southern California, Arizona, Florida. It's like that everywhere, guys. So at the end of the day, we're still in all these multiple offer situations. It brings more liability for the agent, frustration for the buyer, and for the seller, it's okay. But guess what? How do you know that, let's say that we get to 500. Well, if we sat there and said, well, give me your highest and best, and a buyer goes, well, let's offer 5, and that should be good enough. And then they didn't win, and they go, oh, well, we were going to do 510. How many times that happened?
Happens all the time on regular offers.
Right. And this eliminates all that. And so all Robert did is said, hey, I can't do an open house, but within the California guidelines, I can have showings. So I simply scheduled showings, and you had all the masks and the gloves and the bleach wipes and everything, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So we did everything according to California code.
My wife set me up with a nice COVID basket, the wipes, the disinfectants, the masks, the gloves, my forms, and she goes, "Here you go, dear."
Yep.
It was awesome. I like it. It's just got to overcome an adept.
And the other thing that Robert does too, folks, that I think is really important for you guys to understand. Man, he shoots a lot of video throughout the day, takes lots of pictures, lots of videos, because, well, in the next listing presentation, all that stuff shows up, right? And like Sunday morning at, I think it was like 8 o'clock, you emailed me your Zillow activity, right?
Yeah.
And he was, of the 7 houses that were in that general area, in that price range, he was the #1 in views, right? I think at the time you had call it 4,000 views. And 2 of them that listed their house at 0, said the houses were free, had 15 and 18 views.
That was interesting.
So it's pretty cool, right? But again, in a listing presentation going forward, when you have that kind of documentation to say, listen, the way in which I do this gets massive exposure on Zillow and Redfin and Realtor.com, and look at the views I have compared to everybody else. Because I think I went on Sunday night at whatever it was, 3, 4 o'clock, and you had 4,900 views in 4 days.
Yeah, it was incredible. It's our marketing strategy is working.
Yeah.
And that's what and I always tell my sellers this, at the end of the day, the more eyes you drive to your property, the more offers. That's the simple facts.
And the more eyes, the chances are great you're going to make more money. Yeah. And Robert just has the ability. He's got a system or something that facilitates getting the best price.
Yep.
And right. Here's another thing to consider if you're a realtor. Well, you go in and say, well, hey, all I got to do is if the house was worth, the guy wanted 480, let me drop it to, 475 or 465. And you go, that way I could get into multiple offers. And the truth is, in today's market, chances are good you will. Here's the problem. What if you don't? Because here's the thing. The way that you list traditionally in MLS versus what Robert's doing, see, the seller has the right to accept, reject, or negotiate any price that you have, right, Robert?
That's correct.
Fully disclosed. Well, here's the deal, guys. If you put it in 465, let's say in MLS, the seller doesn't have that same right. And at the end of the day, if you don't get into multiple offers, man, that is not going to be a happy seller. You got liability issues coming out the wazoo, right?
Yeah.
And so this process completely eliminates all of that. So everybody wins.
It's pretty sweet. You know, it's my sellers are tickled. They're excited. The buyers actually, I like the fact that the buyers and the agents, they feel very confident and comfortable with the process once I've explained it to them.
Right.
A lot of times they're resistant because they don't quite understand that process.
Right.
But once I sit them down, and that's why I like the staggered appointments, Bob, is because it gives me quality time with that agent and their buyer and walk them through the process. Once I walk them through it, they're excited for the full transparency. It's a great process.
It's amazing. So, folks, I thought it was important to shoot this video because, well, there's still quite a few states that have lockdowns and agents that are going, hey, I can't do business because of, the COVID and the lockdown. And I can just tell you, we've sold houses this way, doing virtual tours like Facebook Live tours. We've sold properties that way. We've got one of my guys in Pennsylvania, which is a very, very strict, even stricter than California on lockdown, sold 7 houses in that pandemic, sight unseen, doing it on Facebook virtual tours where the sellers agreed to do it. And he was taking listings throughout the whole process and just sending over digital signatures. So I think it's important with all the things going on out there that you, again, get outside the box and start thinking differently. And so, Robert looked at all the guidelines in California, said, well, yeah, that's pretty tough. But instead of rolling over and laying down, just took this thing to a whole nother level and just crushing it.
And you know what it was, Bob, is it was out of necessity because I still had sellers that wanted to sell and I still had buyers that wanted to buy.
Right.
And I was thinking of, since we couldn't do an open house, how are we going to get people in? The sellers were kind of nervous with the whole process. So we had to get creative and come up with a plan and explain to them from start to finish. So it took one of my sellers and we used that historical data. And now we share that with all of our sellers. And it's, okay, that makes sense. And the light bulb goes off.
Right.
And now they understand how the safety factors are in place.
Right. So guys, thinking outside the box and doing things different in real estate is critical. Hey, if not, you're just a commodity. There's about 1.6 million realtors in the United States, 2 million real estate agents. If you don't do things differently and you don't think outside the box, especially in today's world, how are you going to compete with the iBuyers, the discounters? And if you're in an area where you have open door and offer pad, so I know they haven't rolled this out everywhere, but what you need to be aware of, folks, is if you don't like the crappy offer that they give you on your house, they'll list it for you for 5.5%. So you got a lot of competition. If you don't do things differently and have a different way of doing business, you're going to be in trouble. Robert, you're not sweating out there in Southern California, are you? Well, other than the humidity.
No, you know what? No, we don't have a whole lot of humidity. It's actually shorts and flip-flops weather. But I want to touch base on what you just said about the iBuyer. What we're doing is we have the ability is to give them the sellers. I always go to my for sale by owners as an example with 3, 4, 5 iBuyers of my own, cash investors. They're willing to pay just under market, not always what the seller wants.
Right.
But I'm being able to compete with the offer pads and the open doors and the other cash buyers because I'm too bringing those options to my sellers. A lot of my sellers still want full price because I can show them that we can get them the highest and best price in the shortest amount of time with the least amount of liability and hassle through the online bidding process. So it's, you want to just cash out now and leave money on the table, or do you want it done in 14 days or less? And many times we're closing them and getting them done in 7 days.
Which is nuts, right?
That's crazy.
So in some future videos, folks, what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach some classes on other things you can do in a listing presentation. Because, well, think about it. If they were willing to accept this crazy offer from any of the, the open door offer, Padzilla, doesn't matter. And what if you could buy the house and you made up the money?
Mm-hmm.
We don't think about that because, well, that's different and outside the box. And maybe you don't have the money. Well, guess what? There's solutions for that. So maybe in a set of future videos and future classes, I'll talk about that and how you could be able to do that. So, so here's the thing, guys. If you have any questions and you're on my blog watching this, all you have to do is down below, you can find a link to schedule a 15-minute call with me and brainstorm a little bit. Happy to do that. Again, I would never ask, Robert to take and give up time like that because, well, he'd be swamped. So we're not going to do that. So, so if you're watching on bobmangold.com and you want to schedule a time, you've got some questions, cool. I'm happy to do that. Robert, thanks so much for being here, man. Just keep killing it like that. Because
my pleasure.
Here's the other cool thing, folks. So pretty much you try and do your FSBO appointments for listings on what, Tuesdays and Saturdays?
Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And if I don't have a listing on Saturday, I'll fill it with FSBO appointments.
Right. So if you've seen his schedule, folks, it's just ridiculous how many listing appointments he can get out on. So
I can squeeze out about 6 a day.
Yeah, which is pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
And it's not hard to get the 6 to talk to either, is it?
No, not when you have this platform.
And so here's the cool part of what he's able to do on top of it, folks. He doesn't have to take a listing that he doesn't want. If it's, say, overpriced, or it looks like it would qualify for an episode of The Hoarders, or it's on a busy street, or it's underneath like electrical power lines or whatever, it's okay to say no. Take the ones where we can know he knows he can drive traffic to, pick up lots of buyers, sell them really quickly. Mm-hmm. And hey, he can refer them out to other agents and take a referral fee. So that's kind of how he does it. So
that's exactly right.
Model, right?
Yep.
So Robert, thanks so much for doing this. And hey, good luck. Just keep kicking butt out there, man. You're doing an amazing job. Keep thinking outside the box. And folks, thanks for watching. Hope it helps. Hope it gives you some ideas about how to do things different. And I look forward to talking to you. Thanks so much. See you guys. Cool. So I'm just going to edit that. I'll drop it down and edit.
That was fun, dude.
24, 23 minutes.
Yeah. Cut out that.
So, what I'm going to do is I'll use it as a podcast. It'll feed it into the blog, and then I'll feed it out into social media and do that. Because what I'm going to use that blog for is just creating content, not pushing EXP, not pushing any agenda. Mm-hmm. Other than, hey, if you like any of these ideas, reach out and talk to me.
No, I love it. And I've been doing with my Lunch and Learns. I'm not doing the EXP Explained. I'm doing the Lunch and Learn, ending with the Calendar, and then my follow up is I send them a replay of the podcast or the webinar with my Calendar link again.
Right.
And so I just keep on it. Then I add them to my CRM. So I'm clicking. I mean, I do have a EXP Explained only meeting, right. So I know exactly if they come for that. I know exactly why they're there.
Yep. Sweet.
So I found that that's becoming, instead of taking them from, I mean, in live, it's great to transition.
Right.
But on the webinars, I'm finding that it's better to do what you came for, do your business, then give a chance to follow up with you later.
Yep. Yep. That's why as soon as we can go back to live, we now know that live converts better.
Yeah.
And that's just that. But we can't. Even here, my title company said, hey, let me check. We're still only doing our CE classes on Zoom, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, we'll see how it goes. We'll keep on rocking. Well, cool, brother. Well, yeah, I've got to go get some more FSBOs.
Yep. I'll let you later.
All right, buddy.
Disconnects and broadcast.